Good morning to anyone watching. I'm Emma Hesketh. I'm from Blackburn Library and I'm the Officer for Equality and Access. Today, I'm very pleased to say I've been joined by Debra Sofia Magdalene from Magdalene Wellness, who's very kindly, hi Debra, who's very kindly offered to do a free demonstration and talk for us on the 7 steps to happiness. This recording hopefully can then be useful to anyone who'd like some more information on that, or who's going through a challenging time and might just benefit. So we hope you enjoy it. I'll hand over to you, Debra.
Thank you, Emma, and thank you for inviting me on to talk about this. This is something that's really, really close to my heart. So I'll tell you a little bit about me and just a brief summary of my journey, just so that people understand where I've come from. So I was married in 2004, found out that my husband was planning to leave me for another woman. I had, this crisis on my home. My goodness, how do I respond to this? And what I want to share today is some of the tools, techniques that have worked for me. And I actually wrote this talk. I've delivered it many times to different groups, like for business groups, for groups of women in schools. And I was on a bus to London and I thought, I've got a 5-hour journey. What can I do to make productive use of my time whilst I'm on this journey? And so what I did was I got my notepad out and I thought, I know, I'll write a talk. What do people want the most? And I thought people want to be happy. If you've got happiness, that's what it's all about. So I wrote down the key things, and then over time I've sort of expanded it. And the first step that I realised was that happiness comes from within. It's not relating to anything that's external, because there's so many people that are looking for things like a well-paid job, a house by the sea, like beautiful surroundings. They want the latest model of like everything, all the technology. And they're also saying, when I've got that, I'll be happy. When I've got that, I'll be happy. And happiness is nothing to do with money or wealth. It's what's inside you, and it's how you react to things that go on around you, what you choose to actually focus on. And so happiness is actually a choice that you make. You either choose to be happy or you can choose otherwise. But we have to realise that we are creating things in our world, and we're not always doing it consciously. It's happening from the subconscious, because whatever has gone on in our past can affect us emotionally. And the second step is let go of all the baggage that you're dragging with you from the past, because some people have got a selective past. They remember all the bad things that have happened to them and they focus on those. Right? But we've got to focus on what are the good things that have happened to us in our journey. And yes, bad things happen to everybody, but it's how you deal with those things that makes the difference to whether you are happy or otherwise. So letting go, and like what happens is that as through life, as we sort of on our journey, people will piss us off. People will do this, people will do that. And a lot of people bear grudges and I'm not going to forget that one. I'll be bringing that one up again next time she asks for this or he asks for that. And so it's like they're putting all this stuff in the sack and they're carrying this stack with them that's weighted down with all these burdens that they've accumulated. But the only person that they're harming is themselves. And
carrying negativity.
And resentment and anger and all these things, because we make up stories around what's actually happened in our lives to try and make sense of it. And the stories that we make up are all around our perceptions, but you can have different perceptions about any situation, right? So when we let go of that baggage, we get the bag, empty it all out, And then we can focus on what it is that we do want. So the past doesn't equal the future, which is a really key point. So just because something's happened then doesn't mean to say that we need to carry that forward. We can have a new start. And what I like to do is, like, anything that happens to me, I know that I'm creating everything in my world. So if I'm creating a situation that keeps repeating, it's because I've not learned the lesson from it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So it's about this self-awareness and going within and looking for the reasons. Why am I keep, repeating this? What's the lesson that I'm not getting? And use it as a self-awareness tool. And also to, like, have acceptance for things that have happened, and to be able to forgive other people. Because when we don't forgive other people, the only thing the person that we're harming is ourselves.
Mm.
The other person's probably unaware that you've not forgiven them.
Mm.
Right, but we're harbouring that as a grudge, and and what happens is that if we store emotion in the body that's not dealt with, it causes physical illness. Because physical illness is a sign that there's something unresolved within us. So when we can get to the underlying emotional cause, we can let go of the message that the body, because the body talks to us.
Yeah, because stress will find an outlet, won't it? Whatever, all these negative energies or stresses, you can think you're dealing with it in your head, but it will manifest through the body.
Yeah.
I've heard a few people say that. Yeah.
And there's some really good books on it. Louise Hay wrote a book on about healing your life, and about looking at the emotions and the illnesses, and what affirmations to use in order to heal the body. We can, if we've got illnesses, we can send love to ourselves and to ourselves. And, I've got a friend who, she was a paraplegic. She had, like, an accident. She was in a wheelchair. She couldn't move from the neck down. And the doctors told her that she would never, ever walk again. And she did not take that diagnosis. She did not accept that. And what she did is she loved her body, and she loved all the cells, and she gave the cells instructions. And over time, she was able to walk again. And now she's
That's
all right.
amazing. That's absolutely amazing.
Because we're superhuman, but we've forgotten it. Seriously, we're all superhuman. We've just forgotten the power that we have within us, because we're in all these systems, and through, like, the education system, and like, we're in all these systems, and we're sort of conditioned in a certain way, and we all have, like, limiting beliefs that stop us from expressing actually who we are.
Mm. Do you think the example you've just given about the paraplegic? Mm-hmm. I know recognised science will say there is a psychology to illness, and if you go into an illness with a positive psychology, thinking, actually, I can get through this, I will beat this. Do you think it's that self-love that is actually healing the body? That positivity.
I do, and it's about focusing on the outcome that you want, but also having the self-awareness tools about raising your vibration, because we're all vibrating energy. When you look at quantum physics, everything is frequency and energy.
Mm, right? Absolutely. Yeah.
So when we can look at things in a holistic view and not just black and white. Because science, for example, doesn't recognise a lot of the new energy medicines that are out there. But we know they work, but they're just not recognised because it's not in the traditional box.
Yes, of course, yeah. There's a lot of cynicism around things that are homeopathic or holistic, isn't there? And I guess if you're prepared to accept that there may not be a science, but there is the evidence that it works, that's the key thing to pick up.
That's right. And it's like, what have you got to lose? Try it. If it works, it works.
Exactly. It's not going to do you any harm. Yeah.
So what I say to people is, empty your sack, throw it all away and move on. So that's step 2, let go. Now, step 3 is watch your words. And I normally start off with people saying, Emma, how are you?
And I would say, fine, thank you.
And a lot of people say, fine, thank you, or they say, okay. Right, you asked me the question.
Deborah, how are you?
I am amazing. I feel so full of energy today. I feel really, really, really good. Thank you for asking.
Now, that's not the kind of response I would normally get from anybody.
I know.
Equally, they wouldn't say, I'm feeling really low. Everyone just says, I'm fine, because we don't talk about it, do we? We don't really express how we're feeling.
Yeah, and it comes down to like emotional honesty, you know, with people. If I'm not feeling good, I'm honest about it. I'm saying, you know what, today I'm having a really low day. You know, like last Friday, my mother-in-law died suddenly, and you know, it wasn't expected.
Sorry.
And so we go through these emotional periods in our time. You know, loss of a loved one. It's only 9 weeks before that my ex-husband died, right? And so we're surrounded at the moment with people dying, and that can be a real trigger for people staying in these really low emotional states of like depression and grief and sadness, and we have to be able to express those. And it's so important for us to release the emotion, because if we hold on to it, like in Britain we have this stiff upper lip, you know, especially with the men. The women are much better at releasing, but the men think, you know, oh, we can't cry, we're men. And that is the worst thing that anybody can do, to hold it in, that emotion. So when we allow ourselves to express it, we can actually move through it and transmute it. And I find a really good way of doing that is actually being out in nature. Going for a walk in nature, and I you know, just look at the trees, and I look at the grass, you know, the beauty of everything around me, and focus on that. But yeah, so with your words could create your emotion, right? So when you're saying, oh, I'm fine, it doesn't create a good feeling, does it? Because it's, oh, I'm fine.
No, it's
I'm okay.
It's neutral. It could even be a lie. It's just an automatic response. There's no thought process there at all.
Yeah. And so when you're watching your words, you know, as I said, the words create emotion. It's like energy in motion. So if you want to change the way that you feel, you've got to come up with a new vocabulary. And one of the things that I say to people is, how often do you beat yourself up? When you talk to yourself, Emma, what do you say? Give me some examples.
Oh, let me think. You know, the mirror talks, where you look at yourself in the mirror. I'll generally be, oh, yeah, numpty. What have you done that for? You're completely crackers. Or, yeah, I'm not. Yeah, it's an interesting question, that, because I wouldn't say I'm kind to myself. When I have conversations with myself, it's generally, oh, you look awful without makeup. Oh, you've got really bad bags under your eyes. How big's your chin today? Has it reduced? Has it got bigger? You really need to lose weight. You're too overweight. The skin on your face is broken. I see all the negatives.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
Go on.
If you spoke to your best friend the way you're speaking to yourself, how often would she still be around?
I think I'd probably have a few bruises. Yeah, I mean, you just wouldn't, would you? You wouldn't say, oh, you know, you're not very good at that, and you're not good at this, and by the way, your skin looks dreadful. And if you gain weight, you just wouldn't do it. You're absolutely right.
Why do we do that to ourselves?
I don't know. I think it's a societal expectation, isn't it? It's all these awful magazines with role models and perceptions of how women should look.
Yeah.
And you see, I see things like, what's she called? Elle, the original model, and she's in her 50s, as I am. And she's absolutely stunningly beautiful. And if you put me in a bikini, the entire population of Lancashire would run away. And you don't accept yourself as you are, because you've got this image of who you should be.
Yeah, and a lot of that is from the media, isn't it? You know,
I think
we've
so.
got
Yeah.
the media, we've got you know, so much, like the images that they do, you know, the airbrushing, and so the people that you're actually trying to be like aren't even like
They
that
don't even look like
themselves.
that. But it's interesting as well, you know, what you said, watch your language, because I think a lot of it we learn, because I know I have a daughter, and all I've ever said to her on a daily basis is, "You're beautiful, I love you," irrespective of what size she is, whatever, because that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
But my mother used to say things like, "Oh, darling," she was very posh, "I think you've got duck's disease." And I said, "What's duck's disease?" She went, "Your bottom's just too near the floor."
Oh.
And she would say things like this. So if we repeat, thinking about your what's your language point, if we actually repeat negative feedback to people, we're making ourselves unhappy as well as making them unhappy.
That's right. It can be really damaging.
Yeah,
Really
that's really
damaging.
interesting.
Yeah. Especially when you say things like that to a child, because whatever happens in the child's first 7 years of life is like forming their personality. So you've
Yeah,
got to be super important with children.
yeah.
Um, and one of the ways that you can actually start your day on a better day is to come up with some power questions.
Oh, go on.
So it's like, um, I like one of the things, if ever I'm in a low emotional state, I think, what can I be grateful for today? And
Mm,
because when you go into gratitude, this is one of my steps actually, but I'll talk about it now. When you go into gratitude, it melts away all negative emotions.
mm.
It's super powerful. And if you take one thing away from this talk, I just want you to remember that one thing, the power of gratitude. What can I be grateful for right now?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many things I'm grateful for.
Yeah, we've
Uh,
got a roof over our head, we've got food
exactly.
on the table,
Yeah.
we've got, you know, water to drink. How many millions and millions of people are starving in the world? And, you know, when, you know, we're so rich in this country, even the poor people are rich compared to the poor people in third world countries. And so there's always, like, you know, ways that we can look at things in a different way. So power questions are things like, oh, what shall I focus on today? What will bring me the most joy
Right.
today? You know, what can I do right now that's going to make me just feel calm and relaxed, right? And we can focus our attention through just asking ourselves the right questions.
Okay. I'm making a note of all of these.
Good, good. And what I like to encourage people to do is have conscious awareness of the thoughts. And as soon as a thought comes in, be aware of that thought rather than just letting it take hold and then run, you know, like taking you on like a downward spiral, for example.
Okay.
So if a negative thought comes in, just catch it. Oh, but I wonder where I got that thought from. I wonder who I inherited that from. You know, was it like conditioning from school or from religion or from parents or from friends? Because everything is conditioning and it's
Mm,
leading us to where we are now. So with self-awareness, we can learn to unravel everything, to
yeah.
look at, you know, the root cause of where things happen. Um, so yeah, and then the other thing about words is about emotional intelligence. Right? I used to do supported lodgings with homeless teenagers, working with Child Action Northwest, which is one of the Blackburn charities. And so they come and live with me for up to 2 years. And I teach them independent living skills. And sometimes, you know, some of the young people that came in were very angry. And one minute they'd be all right, and the next minute they'd be flying off, really, really angry. And, you know, when we look at it, it's because they've not got the right, the same level of emotional intelligence, because they've not got the vocabulary. So, for example, they might go from feeling neutral to feeling you know, it's like, he's done that, boom, right? And so
Yeah.
immediately they're reacting to something. So the trick is to put more words in there, in between neutral and angry. So for
Mm-hmm.
example, you can build up the vocabulary. So you're stopping yourself and say, okay, am I niggled? Am I knocked? Am I like annoyed? Am I,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So what you're doing is
Scale
you're
it.
plotting in other words between here and here. So
Yeah.
that when you're actually catching that awareness, you're thinking, okay, how do I actually choose to respond to this rather than reacting to it? And when you can master that, you master your life, because
Mm-hmm.
every single thought is a seed of creation. People don't realize this. People who study the law of attraction know it, but not everybody knows about the law of attraction. Google it, have a, you know, read up about it. So
Yeah.
every single thought is a seed of creation. And those thoughts create geometry. Everything in the universe has a geometry to bring it into the physical. And when you're actually thinking something, right, it takes a while, but what you're actually doing is creating your own reality, because this geometry forms. If you've got repeating thoughts and behaviors, it's crystallizing it into the physical. And so
Right.
what we need to do is change how we actually bring things into our lives by having this self-awareness.
Okay.
I'm going into a lot more detail here than I would not normally go to, but you know what I tend to do is I just sort of tune in before a call, and I just say, just whatever wants to come through, let it come through, and
Okay.
not censor it. So that's step 3, watch your words, and we've gone into far more than words there. So step 4 is physiology and focus,
Okay.
right? If somebody's having a panic attack, one of the quickest ways to change that state is to change the breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And just to focus on the breath. And just focus on that. And and count, slow the breath down and count. I remember I was in Glastonbury. I do a lot of traveling. I was in Glastonbury, and I was in the Magdalene Chapel there actually, and a lady came in, and then very quickly she sort of like went into a panic attack, and I just said, would you like some assistance? And she nodded, and I had a bottle of my doTERRA wild orange essential oil in my handbag. I always carry it around everywhere. I said, sit down and inhale this deeply. And I demonstrated, and I gave her the bottle. Within 20 seconds, she'd come out of a panic attack.
That's amazing.
And she said to me, she said, is this doTERRA's wild orange? I said, yeah, how did you know that? And she said, well, I've got a doTERRA account. I said, well, why are you not carrying your wild orange around with you? She said, well, I didn't know I'd need it. I said, yeah, but that's why I always carry my oils around with me, because like you can help so many people when you're out and about. Because just smelling an essential oil can completely change your whole emotional state, because it goes to the limbic part of the brain, which controls the body and tells it what to do. So it's very,
Right.
very quick at changing emotion. And wild orange in particular, if anybody's feeling really depressed and they've got anxiety and stress, it's a brilliant oil for helping people to feel calmer and uplifted.
Right. I'm going
It's,
to make a
it
note
works
of
like
that one for
magic.
sure.
It's also really good for insomnia.
Oh, I'm an insomniac. So
Yeah,
that's,
so you can rub it on the soles of your feet at bedtime, and it can just help you to have like a restful sleep.
I will definitely take you up on that one. Okay.
Yeah. So like using all these different tools, we can actually regain our happiness, right? So she went from being in the middle of a panic attack to then feeling calm, relaxed, and uplifted. And something had triggered her off. It's about what was the trigger? What triggered her off? And she'd actually seen her ex-partner unexpectedly, and they'd split up, and he was seeing somebody else, and it had triggered her to go into this panic attack because she didn't know how to cope with it.
So there, using one of your other steps, there's, yes, use the essential oil, but then it's catch that thought, see what your trigger is, and presumably develop coping mechanisms for it.
Well, in the step that I'm actually talking about at the moment, it was physiology. So the physiology was changed by the breathing in this case.
Right.
And the oil enhanced that effect.
Right.
Right. But the focus is what you're focusing on. She was focusing on her ex-partner being with another woman, right? When my husband left me for another woman, I had to really dig deep to find an empowering meaning for that situation, right? Because of the training that I've done, I know that I can choose how I think. So I'm a conscious creator of my own reality. So because I know this, and I'm going through this highly emotional state of like something happened, that's unexpected, it's like I really, really need to find an empowering meaning to get me through this. And it took me 2 days to come up with it. And the meaning I gave to my husband leaving me for somebody else was that he set me free, and I can now become the person that I'm destined to be.
That's amazing. I like that.
And every time I thought about him leaving me, I just thought, wow, how blessed am I? Set me free. What can I create now with my life?
That's a hugely strong and optimistic stance to take on it. And I wonder how many people would be capable of doing that.
Anybody's capable of doing it. They just need the right tools.
Right.
And the right awareness. It's all about self-awareness. One of the things that really helped me, because you still go through the grief, you go through like the heartbreak, you go through all those, feeling unloved, feeling rejected, feeling not good enough. So I still went through all that, right? But what I did is I journaled and I wrote down every emotion that came to me. And I used to do this in bed at night, and I'd just write down exactly what I was feeling, my emotions, and I will be in buckets of tears because I know that you've got to let the emotion go. What we're not talking about here is masking what's going on underneath. We're talking about ways of releasing, but then having a new focus, which is powered by the questions that you ask yourself.
Right, that makes sense.
Right, and so like my focus in my businesses is how can I be of service. When you're of service to people, when you can help people, it's like not what it's a different way of doing things. It's like not what can I sell to somebody, not what can I get off them. It's not about that, right? It's about how can I be of service at the highest level right now. And when you come in from that intention, people get that, and also it like carries an energy, and it's like the law of I don't even know how to say it.
Reciprocity.
That's the one. We'll say that one. It always comes back in other ways, and so you give unconditionally, and then see what happens. So I want to move on now. So that's the third step. Watch your words. My fourth step. The fourth step.
Yeah,
we were just talking about was physiology and
physiology
focus.
And focus.
Physiology and focus.
So we're on 5.
This is still number 4 because we did number 3, didn't we? Watch your words. We've just been talking about physiology and focus, and the focus is about the mental. Where am I going to focus? And how can I change my focus by the questions that I ask myself.
Okay.
Right. And I've got my little notes here. And so the next thing, we've talked about empowering meanings, and I just want to talk a little bit actually about being a victim or taking personal responsibility, because a lot of people think that life is happening to them because they've not got that self-awareness and that understanding, because nobody teaches us this at school. We're certainly not taught it, that we're creating our own reality in every moment. Right. And so when we can look at things that happened to us, like when my husband left me, I thought, I'm not going to be a victim. I could have played, the poor me card and gone into that cycle of, oh, he's left me and this, that and the other. But I took personal responsibility for it. And I thought, do you know what? When somebody leaves somebody in a relationship like that, if he'd have been happy in that relationship, if we'd have had some more tools and communicated better, things wouldn't have got to like, we just got to the stage where we weren't meeting each other's needs, communicating, and when that happens, you know, things sort of, you know, you go your own ways, and it's like you can't be bothered to make the effort anymore. And so I took personal responsibility for that, and I thought, he's left me because I wasn't meeting his needs. And in a lot of cases, we don't even know what our partner's needs are, but that's another talk, right? And so there's a really, really good book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. It's brilliant. Everybody should read that book. It helps you to have better relationships with yourself because you understand what your love language is, with other people, and with, you know, a partner. So it's a really valuable one, is that. So yeah, that's physiology and focus. And I'll move on now to step 5, which I've already touched on, and that's the power of gratitude.
Okay.
And as I mentioned to you, gratitude dissolves every single negative emotion instantly. Just try it. Just think of something, right? That you've got like an emotional issue with, but you might not have anything, but you know, like sometimes people have got things.
Yeah, I've got a thought. Yeah, I've got one.
Okay, so hold that thought and go into that state of really focusing on that thought and notice what it's doing to your body, to your breathing. You know, you're breathing full, you're breathing shallow.
Straight away, I'm tensing up around my upper body and my chest.
Feeling constricted.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm crossed my ankles. Gone into a sort of defence position. Yeah, and I just feel uncomfortable in myself.
Okay.
Straight away.
So what I want you to do is just put your hands on your heart and just breathe and just think of all the things that you've got to be grateful for in life and see how long it takes you to completely change. And really breathe deeply and slowly.
It's shifting already.
And it can happen in a heartbeat, instantly.
Yeah.
Changing your focus. Gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions that we have.
Yeah, I only had to think of 3 things, and everything just, you can't see, but my ankles have uncrossed. It's really funny that I did a counselling course once, and we did an awful lot of self-reflection, and it was amazing how many of us, when we were doing this, and also journaling, which can be quite an emotional journey to do, when we were talking about it, you'd watch people in the room and their arms would fold or their ankles would fold, and then the arms would come down and they'd all be trying to look relaxed and they were completely rigid. But yeah, when you said that and just think what you're grateful for, straight away my whole body went loose again.
Yeah. So it's really good as a morning ritual to write down 3 things that you're grateful for in that moment, and do the same thing last thing at night, just before you go to bed. You know, keep a journal next to your bed. The power of gratitude is immense. So yeah, we've got like a gratitude journal, and I think I've shared. Let me just check. I just wanted to mention about not going into self-pity. I think I've already covered that, you know, not going into
victim. Yeah.
You know, the poor me.
I do know a lot of people who, when something happens, their default position is victim.
Yeah.
And it's, why has this happened to me again? What have I done to deserve this?
Yeah.
Frequently, I mean, if something like that happens to me, my first thought is, how have I brought this on myself? What have I done that's made this happen?
Yeah.
Or, as I think you've intimated, am I actually intuiting this the wrong way? Am I overreacting to it? What is really going on here? But a lot of people seem to want to stay in victim mode. And whatever you do, you can't shift them. What do you do when you've got someone who's stuck in victim mode?
It's about giving them the self-awareness tools.
Right.
So the things that we're going through now are valuable. Also, like, you know, you're a library service. There's so many good books. I mean, I read a book many years ago called Being Happy by Andrew Matthews, and it's brilliant. And I bought that book for so many people because it's transformed their life. Just reading that one book. And, you know, at the time I read it, all the things, I mean, at the time, my husband had been ill for 2 years, and financially it was really, really tough. He'd gone into sort of a depression, and everything in the house started breaking. Television broke, and the washing machine broke, and the fridge broke. But every time something happened, I would go into this deep emotional state, and I'd be, oh no, what's going to happen next? That's like putting your order into the universe, saying I want more of it, right? And this is why focus is so important, because if you're focusing on the things that you don't want, you'll attract more of it.
So you have,
If you focus on the things that you do want, you'll be magnetized towards them. They will be magnetized towards you if you do it right. And it works. I live my life like this, Emma. You know, I've studied with some of the world's best teachers in personal development, in spiritual development, and this is why I'm talking from. I've been there. I've been in those places. You know, those dark places, those dark nights of the soul. And I truly believe that everything that happens to us in life is teaching us lessons. And some people find this really, really hard to take. But it's like we create things so that we can experience the polarities. You can't experience the joy without experiencing the darkness, because otherwise you don't know what it is, right? With consciousness playing out. So, for example, you don't know what hot is unless you've got the contrast of cold.
Yeah, this
So
reminds
everything is on like a spectrum.
Yeah.
So when we're actually in the darkness, it's actually, you know, one of the meanings you can give to that is, wow, look at the joy that's going to come in, because I'm in this really dark place right now. It's now giving me some opportunity to be still and to be reflective. And there's some brilliant videos on YouTube about this. I recommend people watch Abraham Hicks on depression. There's Esther and Jerry Hicks who do talks and things like this, and the wisdom that comes through is so incredible. You know, I learn so much from listening to these. So when you've got sort of resources that you can tap into and learn, you get the self-awareness. And so, like, people that are in that really, really dark place, it's not a nice place to be. But just trust that by having a will to go on the journey of self-awareness and to have hope. Hope is the first stage, because it shifts your vibration from down here to up here. And then to have faith and trust and love is on the highest vibration, you know, and then you've got like gratitude and joy, and, you know, all these vibrations keep you up here. But when you've got a low vibration, when you're in these things, physical illness manifests quicker, because physical illness is when you're in a low vibration, it lowers your immune system. Fear, the amount of fear that's going on at the moment with the lockdown situation, right, and people in fear of each other and of you know, it lowers the vibration. So it's super important at this time in particular to work on raising your vibration and not being in fear, but being aware. It's a big difference. So yeah, we get the contrast, and we need to make habits of these things. It takes, I think it's about 21 days, they say, for a new habit to be formed. So if we can get like a daily ritual of like a gratitude journal, your power questions, go out for a walk in nature, eat healthily. Eating healthily has a huge impact on depression. There's a really strong link between depression and a lack of nutrients in the body. The body's not getting the right level of vitamins and minerals. And over time, what's happened is the farming methods have changed. The soil's depleted of all the nutrients. The body's not getting what it needs, and it has an impact on our health. So everything is linked. So healthy eating can have a massive impact, and taking high quality supplements that are bioavailable to the body to actually ingest, because we're not getting what we need just from the food. But that might be a challenge to some people if they're like on really limited budgets. They might not have the budget to go out there and do that, but they can do more for themselves by cutting out the processed food, cutting out sugar, which is actually more addictive than cocaine, is sugar, and it's very acidic. And when you're looking at the pH scale of food, right, you've got acidic and you've got alkaline. You can Google like the food pH charts, acid alkaline, and it'll show you which foods are in both categories. Now, illness can only take place when the body's in an acidic environment. So if you can alkalize the body, clean it up by, doing like a cleanse to reset the body, it has massive impacts on your health and on your mental health. So, there's lots of things that we can do to help ourselves, and money doesn't have to be a barrier. For a start, the processed food is a lot more expensive than going to the veggie counter and making all your own food from scratch.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm vegetarian, and you can buy meat substitute, but what's the point in being vegetarian if you're going to eat something that looks like chicken when you don't want to eat chicken?
It's processed.
It's all processed. So we do an awful lot of cooking completely from scratch, and it's actually a hell of a lot cheaper. And as you say, it's so much more nutritious, especially if you steam. I'm a big fan of steaming vegetables rather than cooking them, because you still got all that goodness in there. So yeah, I'm totally with you on the diet and the benefits of that. And also the supplements. I think they're so valuable. And you can get the cheaper ones. I don't know if you're supposed to mention company names on a video, but I went to Holland and Barrett to look at supplements, and I was like, my God, I can't afford those. I went to Wilko's, and the same supplements were a lot cheaper. Now, I don't know whether or not they're significantly less quality, but I've certainly felt the benefit when I used them. So there are cheaper ways of getting hold of them if you need to.
Yeah, but a lot of the problem, the supplements are synthesized, a lot of them, so they're not actually from whole food sources, so the body doesn't recognize it as real food, and so you're not getting the benefit from it. You might get a little bit of benefit, but you're not getting the full benefit of it.
Right.
But it's a stepping stone.
Yeah,
it's a stepping stone. Let me just see if there's anything else I wanted to mention on that one. Oh yeah, making happiness a habit. I've put on here, check your peer group. Who do you hang out with? Right, because that can have a massive impact on how you feel emotionally. And you get some people who light up a room, and other people who, like, the room dims. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Emma, but like you get the energy vampires who like suck all your energy. They take all your time, your attention.
Yes,
they're demanding. You try and help them, and it's never enough, or they throw it back. Do you know what I mean? And they don't want to do anything for themselves. And you have to make a choice as to whether through self-love you are going to look after yourself, or whether you're going to give all your energy to other people.
That's a really good phrase as well, energy vampires, because it does suck the life out of you. I've known a few of those in my life, and I have to say I've made the conscious decision to cut them out of my life, because they will never change. They'll never be satisfied, and they're capable of making you exhausted and very miserable.
Yeah. Very much so. And so there again, it's about taking personal responsibility. And I read somewhere that we become like the sum of the 5 people that we hang out with, or something like that, right? So for example, if you've got a teenager who's in a peer group, and the rest of the peer group are into drugs and alcohol and crime,
Mm.
and somebody new comes into that group, what's going to happen?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you've got to distance yourself and have the self-awareness and the foresight to say, well, what do I want to create for my life? If I go down that path, where is that leading me ultimately? And if I take the other path, what do I actually want to create? Because we can create any path we want.
That's interesting, because what you're describing there is accountability for your own life choices.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people tend to say, oh, well, it was fate. I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice is a phrase that's used really frequently. And in fact, we always have a choice. So what you're talking about is owning up to being accountable for your own self and your own choices.
That's right.
I think a lot of people shy away from that.
Yeah, but they don't realise that they've got the choice because, like, of the systems and the programming. This is what I'm saying. So, it's my belief that people are only doing the best that they know with what the tools that they've got, and this is why, talks like this and the other books that you can read, tapes that you can use. It's about feeding your mind with the good stuff. And when I'm driving around, my car is my library. It's my university. I'm a full-time house and pet sitter, or I was before coronavirus. All my income from that has completely gone because nobody can leave home. So, when I'm traveling around the country, I listen to things that will feed my mind. I went to the library in Glastonbury, and they had like a sale on of old resources that they were sort of moving on. And I got a full set of Abraham Hicks CDs. And I said, how much do you want for these? I think there were about 20 in the set, 20 CDs. And she said, oh, 50p. I said, I can't give you 50p for all these. She went,
Good grief.
I said, £1 for all these? She went, £2. I said, look, £3, and that's my final offer. Just having some fun with it, But I tell you what, the value that I've got from those CDs is priceless. Priceless. And a lot of it's available for free on YouTube. So money doesn't have to be a barrier.
No, absolutely not. We must create a bibliography as well of all these wonderful resources you've told us about. Yeah.
That's your job.
I'll do that.
As a librarian. And so, it's about, let me just see if there's anything else that I want to say on that. Oh, yeah. Yeah. When we're talking about happiness and creating habits, what's really useful is to have a happiness buddy who's going to call you if you go into a certain pattern.
Okay.
So when I mentioned earlier that when my ex-husband was really ill, he'd been off work for 2 years. He had depression. I knew I needed to do something to change his mental state, and I booked us tickets to go and see one of the world's leading personal development trainers and it was a 3-day course in Birmingham, and I didn't have the money. I had 2 children that were young, so I organised with my sister to have the children, and I bought the tickets on my credit card because I knew I had to do something. Otherwise, we would have split up a long, long time ago. And on this course, we learned so much about communication and about how we were in these really unhealthy habits. And it's like we would talk to each other, but we were bickering all the time. And people from the outside looking in would think we were having a fully blown argument, but we weren't. It's just the way we spoke to each other because we didn't know any better. But once we had that course and we looked at the self-awareness and we thought, oh gosh, what is this creating in our family? What energy is this to bring children up in? It's so unhealthy. And so we committed to each other that we would change our habits because we're on, step 6, make happiness a habit. But in order to move from there to stopping it altogether, you've got to create a new habit. And it's about breaking the triggers. So, and with the self-awareness, what we agreed is that we would have a trigger word that once we said this word, we'd stop that old behaviour immediately.
Right.
and change our behaviour going forward. So the word we chose was bananas. So he'd come home from work and we'd be making tea, and then we'd get into our and then one of us would say bananas, and then we'd, oh God, we'd laugh, and we're back there again. And by doing that, it helped us to learn new ways of how we wanted to communicate, and you know, putting new things in place. It was super powerful. So, and you can also have like a happiness buddy. So it might be that if you're feeling low, somebody who you can call and have an uplifting conversation with, or somebody who's going to check in on you, and you're supporting each other in learning these new tools
Mm-hmm.
and holding each other accountable. You know, like if I might give you permission, Emma, that right, I'm choosing now, instead of being a victim, I'm choosing to take personal responsibility for every single aspect of my life. So what I want you to do is, if you notice me falling into that victim mentality and life's happening to me, I want you
Mm-hmm.
to say a trigger word, which is like
Aubergine.
aubergine. Say aubergine, and you can do it in such a way, aubergine, you're back there again, aubergine. Because straight away by doing it that in a fun way, it's like breaking the pattern.
Yeah.
And because you're doing it in a fun way, you start to laugh.
Yeah. I can see that.
Right, and it's really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I recommend having a happiness buddy and somebody who's going to hold you accountable. But you have to give them permission to do this.
Yeah.
And not be fed up with them if they call you out on it, because it's all about, as I say, self-awareness, learning, personal growth.
And honesty. Yeah.
And then the last step, number 7, is have a higher purpose. Because life isn't just about us. You know, we're part of a bigger team, we're part of humanity. And it's about, you know, what can we do? What contribution can we leave to society? What difference can we make in the world?
Mm-hmm.
I've got a friend, John McGee, and he set up an organisation. Well, it's a movement called Kindness. You know, the Kindness movement. And he has a Facebook group called Random Acts of Kindness, and he's written a book about being kind to people. And there's a fantastic film called Pay It Forward.
I've seen it. I love it.
Oh,
That is one of my favourite films of all time.
me too.
If we could live life like that, it would be a wonderful world.
And you know what? We can.
Yeah.
But we have to be the change that we want to see. We can't change anybody else. The only person we can change is ourselves.
Yeah.
And on that point, when we're blaming other people, right, it's like we're blaming them, but all we're doing is projecting what's going on for us onto them. Yeah. They are showing us an aspect of ourselves that we haven't reconciled or recognised or healed. So we can use other people as a self-awareness tool. What we notice in others is actually something that's going on in us.
What's sad about that is I'm familiar with John McGee. I used to work at an organisation which I better leave nameless. The chief executive of the organisation was a big fan of John McGee, and he decided to bring kindness into the mission statements of the organisation. Even to the extent that annually there would be a kindness day, acts of kindness day, so it was A-OK. The amount of people who were so negative about it because it was perceived to be forced onto them to do, and they didn't see it as an opportunity and a moment of celebration or a moment to consciously do something you may be too busy for another time, they immediately, scheduled act of kindness. How bizarre is that? And sometimes when you try and do something for the positive, there's so much negativity. If you were in a situation where you were setting up an acts of kindness day and you were met with that kind of negativity, what would you do to actually push it away?
If you try and push things away, you'll attract more of it.
Okay, so if you don't push it away, what do you do with it?
If they're in there, oh, what can I do? You could just say, how about this? You know, how about I help you out with that list?
Yeah, but if they're being negative about a concept,
you just leave them to their own devices and don't engage.
Don't engage. Okay.
Yeah, don't engage. You know, I've got a movement called Global Hugs, and I've got like global hug ambassadors all over the world. And
That's
this
lovely.
actually, I'll tell you how this was created. And you know, we're talking about have a higher purpose. When my relationship ended, I knew I wanted to take my children to see the personal development trainer that Brian and I had gone to see, you know, so many years before then. Originally, I saw him in 1993, and I always vowed that, like, when I could, I would take my children there as well, because I just thought that this would be the best investment I can ever give them in their future going forward, because it has such a massive impact on my own life. And so, we went down to London and, you know, did the course down there. And I hadn't been split up for long. And on this course, you've got so many people, that you're getting so many hugs from complete strangers, which for a lot of people, it was way out of the comfort zone. They grew as a result of that. But I had so many hugs, and it's, now I came back to Burnley. And a couple of days later, went out for a night with my girlfriends, and we were down at the local pub. And at the end of the night, I just said, "Come on, girls, let's have a group hug." Because I thought, where's my hugs going to come from now that I'm not here? I thought I'll have to create my own.
Hug deprivation.
I invited two of our male friends to come into the circle and have hugs. And then we had individual hugs with each other. And one of my male friends, Stevie, said, "Do you know what, Deborah? I didn't know how much I needed that hug till he just hugged me then." He said, "I haven't had a hug for 5 years since me and my wife split up."
Oh,
and it was in that moment that I realised how many people are there in the world that just never, ever, ever get that physical contact. And so that was my hug mission was born. And, you know, we've done 3 hug events, created International Hugs Week, which is the first week in May. You know, you'll find them on YouTube, just like, you know, Debra, I think I was called Debra Brown then, Debra Brown Global Hugs and Free Hugs Burnley. You know, it sort of comes up in searches, and you can see little clips of us in Burnley Centre with our signs. And it's really lovely that, you know, like the young people always come over and want to join in. So we always take extra signs, and it's fabulous. And it's amazing how many old people that come and they say, "Oh, thank you so much. I haven't had a hug since my son left home," or "I haven't had a hug since my husband died." Do you know what I mean? And it's just incredible. And you get some people that look at you and go, "Oh, no, thanks." And so it's really important that we don't impose hugs on them. We offer. We never ever just go up to somebody and hug them. If they've had trauma in their life that's been associated with somebody hugging them, right, that could trigger off a really strong emotional trigger, which takes them back to that time, right? So we offer hugs. And anybody who doesn't want to hug, I do this everywhere. I do it at business networking events, Emma. You know, everybody's really formal and they go in, "Oh, nice to meet you, nice to meet you." And I just say, "Oh, would you like a hug? I'm from, you know, like Deborah, and my job title used to be the Director of Hugs." So I thought, "Oh, the Director of Hugs for Global Hugs." Look, that was my branding from my
oh, wonderful
company. And people never forgot that, because people will remember, they'll forget your name, they'll forget what you do, but they'll never ever forget how you make them feel.
Yes. Yeah. I remember quoting that in some training I was doing. It's like if you think back to teachers when you were at school, you may not be able to remember the name of them, possibly even the subject, but you will remember how they made you feel.
Yeah.
And people never forget that.
That's right. My mum was a teacher. You know, she died, it'll be 3 years this year. This is my mum up here.
Oh.
So Dad's still with us, but Mum passed over, you know.
Bless her.
And like, she was a teacher, and none of her students ever forgot her.
Yeah.
She made such an impact on them with the contribution that she made, you know, especially to like the perceived naughty boys. She had a way with them and got the best out of them.
That's a very rare breed of individual that can do that.
Yeah, and I'm very
Yeah.
proud that she's my mum.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's got a beautifully kind face. I can see that from the picture.
Yeah, she has. And
Yes.
so that's about having a higher purpose, about, what can we do, what legacy can we leave, and that might just be being the best version of you, so that your family remember you as somebody who's positive and always was able to make the best of things and look on the bright side of life and make people feel better.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
simple things.
you've certainly given me an awful lot to think about. I am one of life's optimists. I am the person who sees the glass half full. And I'll be the person who says, oh, come on, it could be a lot worse. Just compare it to blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But what you're talking about as well, a mindful, needs a lot of energy. So it's important you take all the steps together so that you get the energy you need to do all these positive things that you're suggesting. So you can't, I'm guessing you can't pick and choose the steps. You really need
They're
them
all related.
as a suite, a
Yeah.
suite of steps. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all related, because if you did one of those things, let's say, for example, I've asked you to just take one thing away, which is the power of gratitude, right? That'll give you one tool. But if you're constantly beating yourself up, you're going to be creating havoc in your life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it depends what you want. You can either choose happiness, or you can choose to ignore everything that we've been talking about and carry on as you are, if life isn't where you want it to be. But if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got. That's another famous saying, isn't it?
I love that one. If you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Yeah.
And then another one that really resonates with me is, for things to change, I have to change.
Yeah.
For things to get better, I have to get better.
Yeah. No, certainly there's some stuff in here that, it's certainly the power questions for me to tackle self-esteem. Because I think if you have got low self-esteem and you don't think you're as good as you could be, it gives you an excuse to carry on being not as good as you could be. Whereas if you ask those power questions and lift yourself, you've something higher to aspire for, haven't you? Which will give you that, that energy and that positivity. So yeah, that would definitely work for me.
Yeah, and what I'd say as well is, like, create a vision for your future. Make it compelling. I'm really into, like, creating vision boards. And I remember years ago, when I still had my house, I had a vision board and I went through magazines. I thought, what do I really want in life? What experiences do I want? What do I want to learn? Where do I want to go? What do I want to bring into my life in terms of, like, gadgets and things like this? And I created a vision board with all the images on there. And first thing in the morning, I'd look at that and I'd go into the feeling of already having it. So look up the law of attraction. You can learn a lot of this stuff on there. But you've got to act as if you've got it now, not as if it's in the future, because otherwise it'll always be in the future. But you see, your brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. Doesn't know the difference. And also, if you there's proof of this, like athletes, for example, it's been shown that mental rehearsal can actually be more powerful than physical rehearsal.
Yes, I'm familiar with this. Again, I worked in education. I had a friend who was
lots of studies on it.
Hell of a lot of them. Yeah. Absolutely.
And so the power of the mind is incredible. Incredible. And this is why I'm saying, don't put any limitations on yourself. And I think it was Napoleon Hill, he said, like, whatever the mind of a man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. You can achieve anything, but we put these self-imposed limitations on ourselves. When I turned 50, I decided that it was my time. I'd spent all my life looking after everybody else. And it was actually during a coaching session I was having with my coach at the time, I realised, he said to me, Deborah, how far down on your list are you? Oh my God, nobody's ever asked me that question before. And it was like, wow. And when we looked at it, I was like number 8 on my list. Everybody else was before me. And if you don't look after yourself first, it's like, you know, the aeroplane, the oxygen mask. If you don't look after
Yeah.
yourself first, you're not as useful and as helpful to other people.
That's a really interesting and really powerful question. You know, where are you on your own list?
Yeah. So I've
Uh,
had big life changes, Emma. I decided that 50 is my time. I've done my time looking after everybody else, and now it's my time. And I gave my children 6 months' notice to leave home.
wow.
I sold my house to my next door neighbour, who'd said to me years later, if ever you want to move, give me first refusal on it because I want it. And originally I was planning to downsize. And then I realised that when I was looking at other properties, I'm thinking, where's all my stuff going to go? Because I'd accumulated so much stuff from living there over 19 years. You know, and I realised that I'd become a prisoner to my physical possessions. And my friend said to me, she said, Deborah, why do you need a house if you want to travel? Oh, gosh, why do I need a house?
Yeah.
So if I don't have a house, what can I do with all my stuff? And I connected with 2 women, one in America, one in Australia, because I used to be a radio host at the time. And they were both radio hosts, and we used to sort of, you know, refer guests to each other. And I had, and both of them had done the same. They'd sold the house and gone travelling. So I had a chat with both of them, and they both said to me, whatever you do, don't put anything in storage, because like when it comes out, it'll have a different energy, and you find that you don't need it, you don't want it. So I gave everything away. And
So
it was like this huge emotional, I had such an attachment to the stuff, right? The stuff that I'd had since a baby, they brought back all these memories, and I'd be there in floods of tears, and I categorised everything. I thought, right, the stuff that I really want to keep, I'll put here, and that's stored in my dad's loft. The stuff that, the rest of the stuff is just a question of like, all right, children, what do you want? The furniture in my house, set my daughter up in hers, my son up in his, and a nephew in his, right? So I just gave that away. Then I had still stuff, and I gave that, I got about £100 for everything else that was there that nobody else wanted, and I couldn't sell. And then the women's refuge, I gave loads of stuff to the women's refuge, because women setting up in homes, you know, after the domestic abuse situations, they're starting again from scratch with nothing. So loads of kitchen equipment, clothing, things like that would be useful. I gave tons of stuff to the charity shop. I skipped very little of it because most of it was recycled. I'm really big on to recycling. And then I had a friend who came and cleared out all my cellar, because he was living in like a community where they were into eco living and things like that. And so everything had a home.
That's fabulous.
And then and so I haven't had a house for 8 years now.
So where do you live now?
I travel permanently. And I run my businesses whilst I'm travelling, and I come and stay with my dad, you know, in between, you know, to visit family and friends. And during lockdown, all my pet sitting work cancelled, and so here I am. And you know what? It's been so lovely to have quiet, still time, and because like I'm a big believer in when you let things go, new opportunities come in.
Yeah.
And so like all my pet sitting work dried up, and then I was thinking, what do I want to do now, you know? And I've just finished a course as well that I was offered for free on creating your destiny. I mean, how amazing is that? You know, and I'm well into all the, you know, the manifestation and creating, because we're like, there's things that we can learn to actually bring things into our life, and I've got really, really good at it. And then an opportunity just dropped in my lap of the frequency device, and I cannot believe the response to it. It's through the roof, and it's going to be huge, absolutely huge. And so now I'm super excited about this technology, because it can transform humanity. It can raise vibration, it can improve people's health, and it can improve their wealth, and they can get started in a business with absolutely no money.
That's amazing.
So it's not a barrier to anybody. If you've got the will and the desire to succeed, you can do anything.
And that, I think, is a lovely quote, mindful of time, to finish on. Deborah, this has been so thought-provoking, so common sense when you hear it. You know, everything you say resonates and makes sense. But until you actually put that package together, those 7 steps, I would never have thought of putting all those together in that way. But I can immediately see that if I did do all the things you've just been talking about, and particularly if I took complete accountability for all my choices and my belief that I have the power to choose the things that will make me happy and go that way, it would make a huge difference just to my life. So for anyone else watching this, thank you so much, because it's just such a wonderful toolkit for enhancing people's experience of their future.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you found it of use, Emma.
I'm going to be thinking about this for a long, long time, I can guarantee it, as well as reading up on some of the wonderful resources.
And don't just think about it, action them. That's the key thing.
Absolutely.
Action. Because you can learn all this stuff, but unless you put it into practice and practice it and implement it till it becomes second nature, then you don't have to think of it. It's like riding a bicycle. You know, you wobble it at the first and you fall off and
get on and do it.
It's like unconscious, you just do it automatically. And it's exactly the same with the mind. It's about training the mind.
Yeah.
So thank you for inviting me on. And if anybody's watching this on replay and you know, you're finding the steps useful, you can connect with me on Facebook. I'm on there. Magdalene Wellness is my Facebook page. My name, and again, is Debra Sofia Magdalene, which is Debra, Sophia with an F, and Magdalene. So yeah, check out Magdalene Wellness on Facebook. You can connect with me there. And if this has been of value, you're welcome to put like a little, you know, comment on there, a review or something. And if I can be of service, you know, to organisations, I'm here, you know, to help in whatever way I can.
Thank you very much, Deborah.
Okay, thank you. Bye, everybody. Give us a wave, Emma.
Bye-bye. Bye, guys.